Hey guys, Ken here with Hobby Harvest. Today I want to talk to you about the number one problem most deer hunters face, and that is a nocturnal deer herd. I'm going to give you the 4 reasons why your deer are nocturnal and how to fix those before next season. Now, first, the reason why you may have a nocturnal deer herd is that you don't have attractions on your property. Maybe the reason why you're getting only nocturnal pictures is because they just happen to be wandering through your property at night and there's nothing actually drawing them there. So to fix this, we need to do habitat improvement. Number 1 is going to be putting in a food plot and then sweetening that up with cover and bedding areas, travel corridors, mock scrapes, and water holes. Those are all things for another video, but if you're like, hey Ken, you know what, I do have attractions on my property and the deer still aren't coming in, then we need to go to number 2. Let's say you do have a food plot, but the deer are only eating it at night. How do you fix that? Well, the reason why they're doing that is probably because you don't have enough screening or cover around that food plot. So you need to add screening in the form of something like switchgrass or hinge cuts, depending on your situation. You can also utilize topography when deciding where to put your food plots so that the hills themselves keep your food plots hidden and make your deer feel a lot safer coming out there in the daylight. Now, if you've done all of that and you're still not seeing deer during the daylight, the third thing that might be happening is that your bedding areas are not close enough to your food sources. So we know that your does and your fawns are going to bed in the closest bedding area to a successful food plot. Now that means a food plot that is the best food attraction in the area for the deer. But if that closest bedding area is a quarter mile away, it's going to take them a considerable amount of time to get there, and their chances of getting there before dark aren't the greatest if something happens to slow them down on the way there. And that's just the does and fawns. The intermediate bucks are going to still be further yet in that next layer of bedding, and your mature bucks are going to be even further away in that next layer of covering. So those mature bucks may be a mile away, which makes it really difficult for them to get to you before dark. Now, how do we fix that? Well, simply we have to put bedding area in closer to those food plots. Now, if we add bedding adjacent to those food plots, those does and those fawns will bed in those areas. Those intermediate aged bucks will fill in where those does and fawns were bedding, and then those mature bucks will fill in where those intermediate aged bucks were. Now, if we can add even more bedding area and different pockets, it's possible to get all of them closer. And that's something we would definitely want to focus on after we've established that successful food source. Now, the final thing is probably the hardest one for most hunters to hear, and the reason why you're not seeing deer during the day is you're spooking them off of your property. Now, we really do need to be critical of ourselves. I know that me and everybody I've hunted with has had this issue in the past as well, and we'll say things like, well, you know, we were seeing deer during the day and then the season started and all of a sudden all the deer are nocturnal. And we blame it on neighbors doing this, the neighbors doing that. Well, if it was the neighbors that were spooking the deer, they should be spooking them towards you, since you do have a successful property that's attracting deer, not off of your property. So we need to be very critical and realize that we're probably the reason the deer are being spooked off of our property during the daylight. So how do we fix that? Well, number 1 is hunter access and stand locations. Now, when you're setting up your property and you're setting up your attractions, the number 1 thing you should consider before going further and putting all the work into establishing all those things is, how am I going to get in here undetected and actually hunt this? So make sure you and anybody who's hunting your property with you can get in and get out without being detected by deer that are on the attractions on your property. Now, the other thing that may be happening, even if you are sneaking in and out of your stand successfully, is that you're sitting your stand when the wind isn't ideal for that stand. So you can imagine that if you're sitting in your stand and you're looking over, say, a food source or a mock scrape that has bedding area behind it, and your wind is at your back, you're blowing your wind right across those attractions and right into the bedding area. Now, there is no way a deer is going to come out of that bedding area and to your attraction when the wind is blowing that way. So not only are you not going to see a deer on this sit, you just created a situation that's detrimental to future sits as well. So make sure the wind is ideal when you're sitting in your stands. Now, the last thing to consider is, are you over-sitting your stands? Now, in a situation like the Wisconsin 9-day gun hunt, you may feel that you need to over-sit your stands because the season is so short, but that could actually be having a negative effect on your chances at success during that limited amount of time you have to hunt during that season. Now, I know a lot of people only hunt until Thanksgiving and then that season is done for them. Other guys only hunt the weekend and they're done. Now, imagine if you did only have the Saturday until the Wednesday to hunt, but you hunted Saturday morning, you hunted Saturday afternoon, you hunted Sunday morning, then why don't you go watch the football game Sunday afternoon and let your stand cool off for a while? Maybe you even go out and celebrate because someone at your camp had a successful hunt already and you aren't quite eager enough to get out of bed on Monday morning. So you let it cool off Monday morning too, and then you go back out and you hunt Monday afternoon. Now, this is all dependent on how the weather is each of these days as well, but it doesn't hurt to let your stands cool off for a little bit in the middle of the season because you have a better chance of being successful on later days if you do that. Alright guys, I hope this helps solve the nocturnal deer problem. If you employ these tactics, I hope you start seeing more deer during the day. If you guys love this content, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you on the next one.